Quick idea. What? First of all, for those who haven't done Matanos Avyonim yet, please, you still have time. There's a box upstairs with a recycle. I don't think he's picked up yet. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. Binyamin Charjevich, please, if you have a chance, make sure you're Mekayim this mitzvah because it's a very critical mitzvah on Purim. I just want to share one small idea, but I think it's an important one because from now until we start the Suda, again, as I stressed yesterday and to the guys in my shir over and over again, in order for you to Mekayim the Simcha Purim, which we all know is going to end up becoming surrounded by drinking, you have to have the right ideas in mind. So one of them, I think, has to do with understanding the anti-Semitism of Haman. And there's one incident in the Megillah that really brings to light his unique personality. I won't say that unique, but it's a unique thing that he does. So after Haman strikes the deal with Achashverosh, so Megillah says that Vayetzei Haman b'yamahu sameach v'tov lev. So Haman leaves the palace and he's in a very happy state. Sameach, he's happy, tov lev. Sounds like he's at the top of his game. V'chiros Haman es Mordechai v'shar melech. And what happens? He happens to come across Mordechai, right? This one Jew. V'lo kam v'lo zam mimenu. And what happened? Mordechai, who knows? We'll use the yeshivish version. His head was buried in the sefer, and the fact that Haman comes by doesn't disturb him whatsoever, right? Haman am Mordechai chema. Right? So Haman is enraged. He's enraged because he sees that Mordechai does not respond to the fact he's walking by. So what does he do? Haman. So Haman's all in a state of emotional disarray. He goes to his house and then says, "Vayishlach vayaveh es ohavav ve'zer shishto." So the Megillah is very careful. It says that what did he do? He brought in his ohavav, which means his loved ones, and his wife. Keep that in mind, that order and the term. Ohavav ve'zer shishto. So you don't go to the wife first, right? You go to the ohavav and then the wife. So what does the Megillah say? So Haman recounts to them his rise to fame, his rise to power, everything's accomplished. And he says, with all this, even with the fact I'm invited to this exclusive party where it's just a king and Esther, with all that, it doesn't matter. Why? Because Mordechai, the Jew who sits in the Shar Melech. So then the Megillah says, Vatomer lo Zeresh Ishto v'chol avav. So now comes the flip. Before it said Ohavav and Zeresh Ishto. Now Zeresh is first, and the Ohavav are second. And what does she say? She suggests, along with the friends who support it, Yasu eitz gavoh chamshim amah. Make this gallows that's going to be 50 amos high. You're going to hang Mordechai on it, and everything's good. And Haman responds in the affirmative. So Haman's very happy with that. Later on, when everything falls apart, so after he leads Mordechai through the city, again we have a similar situation. He goes back to his house. He's Ava v'chafli rosh. One of the themes in Megillah always is the idea of a nafochu. It's all over the place. So here you have sameach v'tov lev is one extreme. The other extreme is avel v'chafli rosh. It's again double lashon. Avel v'chafli rosh. So basically, he could be in a worse state. So what does he do? So again, what does he do? He goes back to now Zeresh, and then Ohavav. Right? In other words, reverse order. And then the Megillah says, "Vayamru lo chachamav Zeresh ishto." Now all of a sudden the Ohavav have been converted to chachamav, which is a funny kind of lashon. And the Gemara learns out from that you see you can learn MS even from a non-Jew. That chachma is not simply in the domain of the Jew, but if anyone presents truth, they're considered a chacham. Of course, what do they say? They say you went up against the wrong guy. Mordechai's a Jew, and then there's the whole Pshat Rashi that the Jews can never be destroyed, etc., etc. And then we know the end of the story after that point. So the main question is why was Haman so enraged when he walked out of the palace initially and he saw Mordechai not budge? I mean, it's a different kind of rage than what happened in the beginning, where it says that Mordechai never bowed down. This is different. This isn't korem mishtachad elo. That's been established already. Now it's v'lo kam v'lo zam mimenu. What's really bothering Haman? And then why does the Megillah play around with this? First it calls him Ohavav, then he turned to Chachamav, then the order. What's going on here, and what's really the idea that we're supposed to take from this? So I think the idea really lies in understanding the nature of the egomaniac, Yeah. See, the thing about Haman, and this is really a feature of the real Amalek, the Amalek that really despises a Jew. They're guided by their ego and their plans. They have these grand schemes and plans to destroy the Jew, but their ego is always what their downfall is. So you got to go into Haman's mindset for a second, psychologically, and understand what really infuriated him when he saw Mordecai. So I don't think it was the fact. I mean, again, what's the state of mind? Guy walks out of the palace. He's at the peak of confidence. His ego is inflated as could possibly be, and he sees Haman. And as the Megillah is recording it, what happens? He gets enraged. Now, what's bothering him? What's really bothering him that he's so angry? All right, what's really bothering him? So Haman sees Mordecai. So what bothers him so much? I mean, Haman's not a stupid guy. It's an amazing thing. This guy, he pulled it off. He's got the plan in place. The Jews are going to be destroyed. Right? I mean, he's number 2 to the king. He's invited to his exclusive party, and this one Jew, this one solitary Jew, doesn't notice him. I want to really get into what I have a theory, but what really bothers him? Think about it. I mean, Haman was ambitious. He had succeeded. I mean, he's at the highest point, psychologically speaking, a person could be. You guys are saying good insofar as what he's noticing. In other words, he's noticing the fact that Mordecai is not affected by this greatness that he's achieved. Because in his framework, the greatest thing that man can achieve is what he's done. I mean, look at him. He's at the top he's one rung below Achashverosh. Esther's invited to this party. I mean, he is so important. I mean, his sense of self-importance was at its peak. Right? But so you're right about that, but I don't know if that's what made him so angry. I think what made him really angry was, it's another good step. Right, so clearly he's someone who's looking for approval by the masses. And again, if someone hits that point of importance, right, you expect a universal approval by people. But I think what really bothered him, what made him angry, I mean, you'll see what I mean in a second. I think if you think about it, I think what really bothered him was the fact that it bothered him so much. It was what really drove him nuts. What drove him nuts is that, why is it that this guy bothers me so much? This one Jew, this one guy doesn't move because I walk by, and it drives him insane. But what's really making him angry? He's angry because, why does this bother me so much? He goes home and he tells his Ohav, I'll explain what Ohav is in a second, but he tells him, look what I've achieved. I've achieved all this. It's irrelevant because this one guy. Why does this bother me so much? Explain it to me. Why am I so troubled by this one solitary Jew? What is so troubling? It drives me nuts, right? Now, what does it mean by Ohav? Think about it. Why does Megillah, we're obviously looking through Haman's eyes. When you're seeking out your friends, you call them Ohav, what does that always indicate? It's the sycophantic approach. You want, your Ohav are those friends who are going to say exactly what you want to hear. Exactly what you want to hear. Right? And that's why he terms them as Ohav. Ohav is a subjective way you look at friends. I'm going to go to them. What are they going to say? They're going to inflate my ego. They're going to make me feel good again. Now, what should have they said at that moment? What should Zeresh have advised Haman? What? Relax. Right? Just take it easy. You're a little, this one Jew's bothering you a little too much. It's not a big deal. Sleep on it. Have some scotch. Sleep it off. Because think about it. Zeresh's plan appeased Haman, and the reason why she comes first is because Ishto Kegufo. She knew Haman's personality. She knew that he needed his ego reinflated again. And what better way to reinflate the ego than to build this tremendous gallows? It wasn't just simply to hang him, but everyone in Shushan would see who won. I killed this Jew. It was me. And therefore, no one would ever question who I am relative to the people. Everyone would acknowledge how great of a person I am. So she was brilliant insofar as reinflating his ego. But was that the right advice to give him? Of course not, because his downfall happened right after that point. What happens? After he gets this idea, he's so excited, and rather than sleeping it off, he goes and so to speak, disturbs Achashverosh in the middle of the night. So we see Ohav is really the friends who tell you what you want to hear. But what's Chachamav, obviously now? Chachamav, and again, he goes back, his ego's now been deflated once again. He doesn't know what to do. He turns to his Ohav again. But now, again, Zeresh, because she came up with the plan, and then Ohav. But now it's Chachamav. Why is it Chachamav? Because they're telling him the truth. Right? They're telling him that now, and again, it's all about how we understand our friends. Ohav tell you what you want to hear. Chachamim, they tell you emes. And even though these people were not exactly high-level people, but the fact is they identified the unique feature of the Jews, and they told him what he had to hear at that point. Did it help him? Obviously not. But they told him at that point what he had to hear. But the main thing we have to understand is that, and this is really the message I want to get across. As we mentioned yesterday with Netanyahu speaking in America, it's amazing how this tiny little country with this tiny little population has such an effect in the world. And you have to understand, as I mentioned, I think yesterday also, there's different kinds of anti-Semitism. But the Haman anti-Semitism, that's very, very dangerous, as obviously we all know. I don't have to give examples to justify it. But we have to understand is that we must understand the thinking of our enemy. because the fact that the one solitary Jew could somehow infuriate Haman to the point where his whole downfall happened because of that, it just shows you how obsessed the anti-Semite is with the Jew. It's an astonishing thing that century after century, decade after decade, the enemies of the Jewish people always rise up, and they're always led by people just like Haman. I mean, again, we look to someone like Hitler. It's important. Again, we tend to caricaturize our tzaddikim and Rishayim. We tend to create these fantasy images and simplify who they are. The truth is, Hitler was a brilliant person. He was brilliant. He ranted a little bit, but he was a brilliant mind. His military strategy is to this day considered some of the most brilliant military tactics ever in history. And the truth is that the way he devised the plan to kill the Jews was, for Russia, unbelievable. He created an efficient method of killing Jews. But it's an amazing thing. Here's a guy who had the whole world at his fingertips. And what he dedicates so much of his manpower to, so much of his time and money to killing Jews, to us. It's a crazy thing. And you see his downfall ultimately was also ego-related. If you ever study the war, you'll see how his ego led to his downfall. But we have to understand that the anti-Semite, the true anti-Semite, he's obsessed with us. Right? He's obsessed with the Jew. He can't separate himself from who we are. And the slightest little thing, the fact that Mordecai just sat there and wasn't affected by the self-importance of a single human being, it drove him absolutely insane. We have to always be on guard. One of the scary things about living in Israel is that sometimes there's a little bit of overconfidence placed in the fact that we have an army. Having an army is very important. Physically speaking, we need to be able to defend ourselves. But the fact is that the wars against our enemies are not physical wars. They're ideological wars. The fact is the ideology of Judaism is not about the worship of the self. It's about the worship of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's turning away from the ego and dedicating ourselves to worship HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Whereas the ideology of Haman is always centered around the self-deification of man. And we have to always understand that and keep that in mind, and especially today, when we reflect back on what Purim is about, Purim really represents, in one sense, that very struggle. The struggle between the ideology of man being the center versus the ideology of Yahadus, which is where man puts his attention, focuses on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So you should keep that in mind today as we enter into our Suda and reflect back on as we celebrate the victory, which we should celebrate. We should celebrate this tremendous victory we had over enemies, recognized as not just simply a victory over Haman and his people, but rather it's a victory of our ideology, the ideology of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, over the ideology where man is at the center of everything. So I hope to see you guys later on at the Suda, and